Welcome back to our Kelly Files special 2013. Their simple name, just 2013. A look back now at some of the major scandals that have rocked the White House this year.
More than a year after the deadly terrorist attack on the U.S. facility in Benghazi, and the Obama administration continues to be dogged by complaints of a possible cover-up.
The fact is, we had 4 dead Americans. Was it because of a protest, or was it because of guys out for a walk one night who decided they'd go kill some Americans? What difference at this point does it make?
Today, lawmakers are still demanding documents, and the victims' families are still waiting for justice. In the meantime, Americans are still waiting for answers about spying after a report revealed the NSA is collecting millions of phone and internet records. And Edward Snowden reveals himself as the source of one of the biggest government leaks in history.
Anybody in the positions of access with the technical capabilities that I had could, suck out secrets, pass them on the open market.
No, I'm not going to be scrambling jets to get a 29-year-old hacker.
In May, we learned the IRS has been targeting conservative groups for extra scrutiny. The woman at the center of that controversy still refuses to answer questions.
I've decided to follow my counsel's advice and not testify or answer any of the questions today.
Those just 3 of the big scandals plaguing the White House in 2013 and beyond.
Look at the picture of President Obama. He doesn't look so sad. These are the scandals. Joining us now, Bernard Whitman is a Democratic pollster, also president and CEO of Whitman Insight Strategies. And Monica Crowley is the host of the Monica Crowley Show and a Fox News contributor. About those 3 things, he probably is a little sad. Which of those do you view as the most significant?
To me, I think the I.R.S. scandal is actually the most dangerous scandal in U.S. history, and here's why. Anytime in the past the I.R.S. has been used as a political weapon against political opponents, it's always been elites versus elites. So it was Lyndon Johnson against Richard Nixon, or the Kennedys trying to use it against Richard Nixon. It was always directed toward sort of other elites that they perceived as somehow a political threat. In this case, though, and this is what makes it so dangerous to the very fabric of the country, is that the IRS is being targeted and used as a political weapon against regular, ordinary Americans in order to silence free speech, in order to intimidate and silence Tea Party conservatives, anybody who had any kind of opposition to this president and his agenda.
While I love Monica, she's wrong again on this. Here's why. This, to quote the Bard, was much ado about nothing. What happened was, the groups that were targeted were Tea Party groups and progressive groups. Elijah Cummings, who's the ranking member of the House Oversight Committee, obtained a memo from July of 2010 that showed, in fact, that the IRS staff was instructed to investigate groups with progressive names and Tea Party names. He uncovered the guy who started labeling the groups himself, who identified as a conservative Republican and said the White House had nothing to do with it. ICE's own report showed absolutely no wrongdoing. This really is a lot of hoo-ha.
There's no moral equivalence.
That's not what hoo-ha means.
That's a conversation for a different day. Happy New Year. There's no moral equivalence between the hundreds of conservative and Tea Party and religious groups who were targeted by the IRS and less than 5 progressive groups who actually had to undergo this. This was a political agenda put into action using the most fearsome arm of the U.S.
So I want to ask you about Benghazi, because a lot of people are still paying attention to that. And that soundbite that we ran of Hillary Clinton, did she help herself or hurt herself there? Because a lot of people thought that was an orchestrated moment by her. She wanted to get that soundbite out, wanted that on the record. Do you think that that helped her, or in retrospect now, has it hurt her?
First of all, anything Bill or Hillary Clinton says is calculated. So those words were designed to have an effect, and I'm sure she had planned to say that. I think she probably thought in the moment it helped her because she was putting distance between herself and the actual event, and the administration and the actual event. I think now in retrospect, it's hurting her because when you look at the poll numbers, Megyn, on her, approval numbers, favorability numbers, they're all in decline.
Yeah, but they're still good.
Yes, they are, but they're in decline, and most people do point to Benghazi and say that statement
what do you think?
Showed
Does that
a loss
stick with
of
her if
credibility
she
and lying.
if and when she runs?
Here's what the tragedy is. The tragedy is that 4 Americans lost their lives. That's what the real tragedy is. But the fact of trying to make this a political witch hunt against the Clintons, which we've seen before, or the fact that Republican senators like Lindsey Graham are using this to block nominations and thereby effectively losing using the filibuster for the minority. That's the real problem here. I'm terribly sorry.
Let me jump in and ask you just this one thing.
But to suggest that this was a cover-up is just
let me ask you this one thing.
Incorrect.
If it's not a cover-up, there's nothing to hide, then why did they have those CIA operatives, when they came back, sign a second non-disclosure agreement? When you join the CIA, you go to work for, you sign a non-disclosure. I'm not going to talk. But then on the day that they were memorializing their fallen comrades, they came to them and said, we want you to sign another one. And that has a lot of people saying, well, why? What is it they have to hide? What more is there to this story?
You know, I would hope actually that CIA operatives have to sign a double, triple non-disclosures.
No, they trust them at their word. Why the need for the second?
Look, I don't know. I'm not part of the CIA, but I don't think that CIA operatives should be speaking to the American people about classified activities.
No, but what's the story? What is it they don't want them
talking about? The investigations have never.
I'm not saying it's political. I'm just saying there's more questions.
100 pages of emails and not a single thing was found.
It's over between us for 2013. To be continued.
Can we come back in 2014?
You better.
We hope so.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
When you're a celebrity, it's adios reality.